Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
Hywell Ifans, or H as most call him, is the managing director at BCCIT. BCCIT is a multi-award-winning, dynamic, highly focused independent IT company specialized in supply, support, integration, and maintenance of end-to-end commercial business IT and telephony solutions. H, welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule while you're here in beautiful Edinburgh. The rain came, which is exactly what I was looking forward to. So I'm glad you made it as well. Thanks so much.
It follows me. I'm Welsh, so it goes everywhere with me.
Yeah, you got it out there as well. Well, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about you. You had, just like a lot of folks, you were sort of right place at the right time early on, right? You know, with computers in the 90s. Can you talk a little bit about how that was and how that happened, how you got introduced to computers?
Yeah, I did 2 years of further education college, if you like. It's as close as I ever got to higher education, you know? And it was easier to kind of do your work, the homework, the assignments on a computer than write it. You know, you could delete and you could go and recreate. And you could do somebody else's assignments for them by editing your own and then sell those assignments to them for 20 quid a shot. And that's what I did, really. So that got me into understanding the use of PCs.
Sure.
I wanted to be an accountant for some reason. I'm apparently the only trade that is more boring than an IT geek. And I got my first job.
So how did you come across BCC? You're obviously an accountant, but dabbling a little bit in computers. But how did you get introduced to those guys?
Yeah, I never got that deep into accountancy, to be honest. It's purely punching figures in. But yeah, when you create yourself a job in the public sector, they tend to give you a boss, don't they, you know? And I didn't really get on with my boss, if I'm honest. So I sent a load of CVs out to people, one of whom was a company called Buyin, the computer centre. I know, easy for me to say. So I sent them a CV and, you know, long story short, they picked me up as a technician. I was really the only technician they had. We had like workshop techs, but we didn't have people that would install and go to site and fix and resolve and stuff like that. So that got me into the business. And we had one guy there who was a sales guy, essentially, and we had an accounts guy and someone who owned the business. The owner of the business was the widow of the guy that set it up, and he passed away a year before I joined. And we had this feeling that at some point, the woman who owned the business was going to move away and we'd all be out of work. So we managed to do a management buy-in, and then the next year a management buyout of the previous owner. And really the rest is history. You know, it's grown and grown from there.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, obviously, just how the buy-in buyout worked. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of technical folks that join a company and maybe are passionate enough and say, man, I'd love to be able to keep this around. Who else did you identify? Was it all the folks at the time that you?
I think there was about 6 members of staff there at the time. And to be perfectly honest, as you said at the start, right place, right time. Yeah. And the only credit I'll ever give myself is that I'll work hard, you know. Yeah. So as a technician, I was killing myself working. And the two guys who were the brains, the sales guy, a guy called Neil, and the accounts guy, a guy called Derek, who still works with us. Mm-hmm. I call Derek my business dad. He looks after me. They thought they'd buy in, and in all honesty, I think they offered me the opportunity of buying in with them because it meant that I was tied to the business, and you know, I wouldn't go elsewhere, and they would have a technician. So I went home and asked my mum and dad if I could borrow some money, and it was a very small amount of money. It was about £5,000. Wow. So what's that in dollars? $6,500, $7,000. And we put that money together, bought into the business, and sure enough, the next year, the previous owner did indeed want to move away, and she was happy to be bought out. So we were back down to 3, and then over the years, I bought those guys out as well.
Wow. So you were definitely more business focused at the time. Not so much, not just sort of agriculture and everything like that. When did you hit on this real estate option?
Yeah, so when I joined the business, we were looking at, switching from everyone, consumers and home users. And there was quite a few agricultural farmers, basically, that were needing to purchase PCs. It was that PC revolution time, So they had a van and a trailer, and they'd take this trailer around and demonstrate PCs to the farming community. And that really piqued the interest in, we need to sell to business. It's much easier to sell to business than it is consumer. You can make money that way. So we kind of did every business, and sold into everyone we could. And again, right place, right time, as you say. It's the story of my life, really. And we did a few installs for this company. There was a real estate, or an estate agent, as we'd say in this country. And the software company did what they do. They followed us in. So we installed all the hardware, then they'd follow us in. And we make their job easy, basically, because it would all be standard and all documented. And they asked us if we'd be their preferred hardware supplier in Wales. And over the years, that grew to be over the UK, and as it also happened, their main competitor asked the same of us. So we were the preferred hardware company for the two main software suppliers into the real estate or estate agency market at the time that the property boom happened. So it went crazy, and that transformed the business, really.
So right place, right time. You pipped a new target customer, which I always love to talk to MSPs about. It was something that we did early on in our MSP, in my past MSP. So you pick an MSP, you pick a target that you're going to go after, real estate, and then there's this housing, this explosion of real estate, and you get to ride that, and you guys grow.
Exactly. Yeah, a business partner that bought into the business with me later on, Steve, would go and ahead of me by a couple of weeks, provide a quote and a project plan. And I'd get in a van, literally on a Monday morning, and say bye to the kids, and I'd see them again on a Friday evening, and that was it, So, yeah.
So 2010, you take full ownership of BCC, and you guys are growing. Was that about the time that the real estate market was taking off, or was there another reason that really the growth was fueled?
Yeah, that was towards the tail end of it, I think. Yeah, we'd totally switched the business by that point. We were willing to work anywhere, and we've always been based in extremely rural West Wales, But we have a workforce that I'm very much a part of that will get to a customer site for 9 o'clock, wherever that is. So, we were kind of flat out because we could undercut the city boys, if you like, and were willing to do it. We had people that would work. And so, it was definitely a focus to the business and continual growth. And I think you have to have confidence. We were very confident that we could continue to grow, and we weren't afraid of employing to build. And you had that safety net of the amount of customers. So one thing we have is a large customer base. So we have over 300 customers, which, a lot of people, and like, it's very much a topic, isn't it? Do you go with a small number of customers and dedicate yourself to those customers and of a certain size, or do you spread? And we've always been on the side of spreading, spread betting, if you like. But I wouldn't say that's definitely the right business model, but it's a business model that we're comfortable and confident that we can support. So at the moment, there is no plan to change that, but I know that the trend currently is.
Yeah, I mean, MSPs have to, all businesses have to make a decision at some point. Do they want just a couple of really large customers, right? The risk of that is if you lose one of those large customers, that's a giant piece of your revenue. And I've seen a lot of MSPs, just like yourself, that have said, we're going to spread out our revenue across a larger number, and we're going to still work our butts off so that we don't have any churn. But if we do happen to lose somebody or they go through acquisition, it isn't felt so horribly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've had a bit of luck with acquisitions as well, as it happens again, right place, the right time. We had a cheese manufacturing plant, a factory, literally on my doorstep, my personal doorstep, and about half an hour from the office. And that company we looked after, they got purchased by a multinational, and we looked after that site and then every other site in the UK because we were willing to do so. And they had a disaster recovery scenario one day. That meant that we ended up working in their head office as part of the recovery team. I didn't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. It was a massive, one of the biggest projects I've ever worked on. But that company then had us as their second line IT support worldwide, even though we're based in the middle of nowhere in the UK, you know. So, yeah, it's that I suppose hard work pays. You create your own luck to some extent, but you have to also take that luck, you know.
You very much did. Yeah, make sure you give yourself some credit once in a while. You definitely did. So let's talk about go-to-market. How important are referrals to you now, or at least were to you, in growing and fueling the growth of your business?
Critical, absolutely critical. We've spent next to no money ever on marketing. We absolutely should. To the extent, and you know, I look back at this brief and I find it quite amusing, if I'm honest. When we did decide we need to do a little bit of marketing, it was purely because some of our competitors were very good at their marketing. So, you know, we've always been the walk guys, but, you know, other people can talk the talk better than us, a lot better than us, to be fair. Yeah. And I felt that, you know, what we needed to do was reassure our existing customer base that we were just as good as anyone else, and don't be fooled by this fancy marketing. And that was the brief, you know, keep our customers happy, and if we gain anybody, great. Yeah. So yeah, it's always been referral, and in all honesty, I think in business, it will always be referral.
Sure. Just about every MSP identifies referral as a huge piece of their go-to-market. The trick is doing it a little different. And I think you guys have done some unique things, right? You're bilingual in Welsh.
Yeah.
You love radio programs. Yeah. And then the Young Entrepreneurs program. Why don't you talk about sort of those 3 things, how they helped you from a referral perspective?
Yeah, so I'm passionately Welsh. Everybody knows that. I can't hide the accent even if I tried. And my first language is Welsh, so I you know, the company is naturally bilingual. And it sounds strange, you know, there's about 700,000 people, I think, that speak Welsh. So it isn't a massive market, but it is one that we are large in, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's definitely a thing, and it will always be very close to my heart. Radio, yeah, when we were talking earlier about, you know, getting into IT, I kind of skipped the fact that I was a radio presenter for 7 months. It was a way of getting away from that boss that I didn't like, and it kind of filled the gap. And but I loved it, and it's the best job I've ever done, if I'm honest, because you may have noticed I like to talk, you know, and it comes easy. So yeah, I still do quite a bit of input into both English and Welsh language radio programs as kind of an IT guy, and mostly talking about how not to get scammed or something like that, you know. And because I like to talk, I guess, I was approached a while ago to be a role model. I like saying that because it's the only time you can use model and me, you know, and how I look, apart from the before of a diet, you know. But they asked me to go, would I go into schools and basically talk about entrepreneurship? And I said yes, and as far as they're concerned, that's what I do. But if I'm perfectly honest, I get more out of bringing a bit of mental health awareness to young people, because I very much suffer of lack of confidence, and you know, and I've done all the roller coaster that is depression and everything else that that most people go through these days, if we're honest about it and we open up about it. So the way I explain it to the young people that I talk to is, you know, in my life I kind of had an awful lot of luck, but I've had the guts to grab that luck when it comes, is how I put it, you know. And that's basically the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and a mindset that isn't. And that doesn't make someone that doesn't have an entrepreneurial mindset wrong. It just means they have a different kind of mindset, you know. And from a mental health viewpoint, I always say, you know, if a fat, balding, middle-aged bloke with a broken nose can stand in front of you and talk about it, well, you know, anyone can. So, yeah, I get a lot out of it, and I hope I give a little bit back to them and say, look, you know, if you don't like education and you just turn up to school today because you have to, and you can't wait to get away, well, that's exactly how I was. You know, you don't have to work in a factory all your life. There are opportunities out there, and you can create your own opportunities.
I think that's really an amazing thing you do, H, and really, really inspiring to other business owners. I hope others think the way that you do, that, you know, that's an opportunity for you to go back to where you were. I mean, you were in that spot years ago where you didn't know what you wanted to do with the rest of your life. And you get to share, look, here's a path, and you can take it or go a different direction, but But this is pretty neat. So I think that's really inspiring, and I'm really glad for you to tell that story.
Good, thanks.
So let's talk about something that maybe isn't a hot topic, or at least an exciting part of your life. You're relatively a new Enable partner, right, in the last year or so. And that's because you were a customer of another RMM, and you'd been through that journey with them for a number of years, for a long time. And then in the summer of 2020, you were hit with a ransomware incident, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully most MSPs haven't experienced what you have, but I'm sure there are some that have. If you don't mind, can we go there for a moment and just talk us through a little bit about, what happened I think it was that Sunday morning, and just what that was like.
Yeah, I had to look up the date, to be honest, and I'm ecstatic that I'd forgotten the date, because for the first few years, it's 3 years ago that we joined Enable, 3 years ago that this happened, and yeah, it was a Sunday morning. I remember the time around it really well, because we had, and I'd hold my hands up and say, we had made a mistake when COVID and lockdown hit the UK. And we assumed that the right thing to do was to furlough half our workforce. So we did. And then IT went mental because everybody needed to work from home. So actually we needed double the workforce, not half the workforce. So those few months, from March to June, when we were in the lockdown in the UK, was extremely hard. And I was very much in and on the tools, and I'd been in the workshop, physically building and getting laptops ready and dispatching them and what have you, for months. And on that Friday night ahead of the weekend when this happened, I knew that was the last Friday I needed to do it, because from Monday the regulations changed and we could start bringing back some staff. So I was thinking, right, we've got there, And it was a Sunday morning anyway, and I got a telephone call from one of the engineers saying, we got a problem with the customer site. Do you mind if I go to site? Great, again. Yeah, go, give me a shout when you're there. And he gives me a shout, and he gives me a call, and he tells me, they've been ransomwared. I said, okay, how do we know? And he said, well, there's a text file that clearly says they've been ransomwared. So read me the contents of the file. And it wasn't the customer that was referenced, it was BCC that was referenced. And, my heart instantly sank. And then I get a phone call from another guy, my business partner, saying that another customer was down and they had issues, and I instantly knew what those issues would be, of course, and one thing led to another, and I was on the phone with like a team of guys that we had, and I feel no shame in saying that those guys heard noises come out of me that, they should never hear. My wife and my daughter were at home at the time, and yeah, it was pretty tough. My daughter was 21, and I remember when I left the house to go into the office, she was looking at me through the window. Yeah, I'm genuinely not sure I would have made it to the office if she hadn't been looking at me, But anyway, we made it into the office. We get on the phone instantly to our endpoint protection provider of choice. Unbelievably, they quoted us £400,000 for 90 days of their assistance, discounted down to about £250,000. Which we said thank you, but no thank you. And then we heard the ransom. We got in contact with the threat actor, who gave us, I think it started off at $2 million as a ransom, ended up at $500,000. And we assembled a team of technicians, and we fought like hell on that Sunday night and into Monday morning. And I think by 3:00 Monday morning, we had our entire data center back. Wow. Thank God, from SAN snapshots. So wow. I can't tell people enough, have snapshots as well as backups, obviously. And yeah, by 7:00 in the morning, most of our customers were up and running. And then obviously we had to fight to get the rest up. So that was the toughest week of my life, I'll be absolutely honest.
Yeah, you've shared that. So it sounds like you acted very quickly. It was all hands on deck. And thankfully, you had a disaster recovery plan in place should something happen. This happened to be through SAN snapshots. Going back in time, thankfully everything worked out the way that you had hoped it would, at least outside of a very stressful weekend, 24 hours, 48 hours. Is there anything looking back, and I know it's hard to do, but is there anything that you would do or would have done differently to just change things?
Yeah, there's, it would be a missed opportunity if you didn't look back at it. It took longer than anything else ever in my life to get to the point that you could look back at it, because the scarring was very real. To the extent, the RMM provider that we had at the time, who I suppose we shouldn't name, the best feature they had, in fairness, was that every single remote session was videoed. So we could see exactly what the threat actor had done. And that enabled the reverse engineering is a damn sight easier when you've got that.
Right.
It isn't complete, but it gives you a good idea. And it also gives you an idea where they've not hit, but where they've run scripts against, and you can reverse the scripts. Sorry, referring to the mental side of it, I still haven't watched one of those videos. There's guys that I work with that have, and they've told me what they contain. But I've started watching one and I just couldn't. And I'm not sure I could now 3 years on. So anyway, looking back at it and what you would do, having those snapshots, because the first thing they do obviously is try to get rid of any backup you have to maximize their opportunity of you paying a ransom, which we never did. Air gapping those backups is critical. Having layers of security. It's everything we all know. Yeah. It's everything we tell our customers. And there'll be a few MSPs on here now saying, we do that. Of course you do. Do you? Yeah. You sure? Everywhere?
Yeah.
So it is all the things that we tell our customers to do, but you need to do it, and you need to do it everywhere. Yeah. Your account system, your HR system, your knowledge base, so that you know how to get at these things. So we very much become a security first in the way we think and propose and evolve our systems now.
You just alluded to this, but what would you tell an MSP owner that's never gone through what you went through that weekend? What would you share with them now just to prepare them for it?
It's difficult because, let's be honest, the biggest thing that we don't have as MSPs is time, but role play it. Seriously, invest the time and role play it. And where do you go? What team do you have? One of the things, it's such a small thing and such an obvious thing, but we have a WhatsApp panic group now, of the senior engineers. Obviously, we can communicate, and we do communicate with each other every day and frequently outside hours as well. But everyone in that panic group, when they see that WhatsApp group light up, it's instant, more or less. And those that can't know that the others will. And so little things like that, and play it out and think, right, where do I go? If that's not available, what is plan B and what is plan C? And also communication, that we did not lose one customer through this. And, I can't thank our customers enough. There's a big chunk of me hopes they're not listening to this, if I'm honest. But, we have a great relationship with our staff. We have a great relationship with our customers. We don't lose either, really. And no customer that was affected in any way left us, and we looked after them. And in one case, they needed to re-input data that they thankfully had on paper. And at the end of the day, if you got paper, you've got the information, you can re-enter it. So we picked up the tab of their overtime for doing that as a gesture, at least we could do. So have that relationship with your customers, front it, don't hide. We're in Scotland, and one of my friends who is Scottish, he was one of the first guys I phoned. And the call went something like, do you want to buy an MSP? Because now is the time to make me an offer. I don't know why I was trying to be funny in that situation, but the advice he gave me is, Hitch, front and centre it, don't hide away, speak to your customers, get to them before they get to you, and you tell them what's happened, don't lie. I can't lie for toffee anyway, I never remember what I said. So, I don't know if that's an answer, Chris.
No,
I've gone down tangents, that's what I do.
I think that's great advice, H. I've seen companies, businesses across the world experience these sort of things, and they make one of two choices. They either very transparent and open with their partners, or they try to push blame somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were very clear and open with your partners is probably a big reason why they all stayed. And you've obviously built that relationship. They're almost partners, right?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
partners of yours.
Yeah.
You're helping them with IT, but they look at you as a key piece to the success of their business. So the fact that you helped them through you paid for their overtime, you did everything that you could possibly do in that period of time. I commend you for that, and I really hope that nobody has to experience what you had to experience, but I really commend you for getting through it.
Thank you.
And so then you calmed down, it took you some time, but you knew you had to make a change. And so you did a proper procurement, and just what was that like when you started to evaluate vendors and look at different tools?
Well, because we were using the same provider for the PSA and I didn't know what a PSA was at the time, and an RMM. So we were kind of sent, like, we gone. There was a few vendors in the industry that we felt very let down by. The endpoint protection provider in particular, obviously the PSA and RMM provider, because we picked up the phone to these guys and we go, right, we need help. And we don't need help in a week, and I don't need the guy selling help to me. I need the help, and we didn't get it. And we didn't waste time arguing. We just said, like, we're on our own, and we've got to be. We had some assistance from authorities, police and stuff, but you kind of, in all honesty, felt like you were training the police as well, because they don't see these incidences. And when they do see them, they normally come to companies like us to help them. So, every time we had a call with the police or the National Crime Agency or the National Cybersecurity Centre, we were telling them how far down the road we were, and they were about 5 steps behind us at all times, So, but it was reassuring that they were there, and you felt that them asking you to do it meant that you had done the right things, And little things like keeping the attacker talking, that's critical. And I knew the tricks, like get him to type something that contains an S in British English and a Z, organisation in American English, and try and time zone it as well, And we're pretty sure that it was stateside, that it was not the way you'd expect it, maybe, That's played out because I've actually had a call with the FBI since, so yeah, it's nearly definitely stateside. Sorry, question, Chris, I totally...
So post the security event, you had a chance to calm down, and then you and the team decided to do sort of a proper procurement and look at a bunch of different tools, not just the endpoint, but also your RMM and even your PSA. Can you share just a little bit about that process?
Yeah, sure. The staff that we have in the company, I always say, your staff don't work for you, you work with your staff, We have some guys in there these days that, if you look back 5 years, you wouldn't expect that to be a critical role. Your admin roles that, are basically there to enable the technical stuff. But these days, with everything becoming cloud and what have you, I'm finding that team is actually growing faster and faster and faster. And the guy that heads up that team, a guy called Joe, he's great at putting together a proper procurement process. So we have a brainstorming session of, like, what do we want our RMM, our PSA or whatever to include, okay? And you kind of brainstorm that and then maybe come back to it a few days later, so you think of things when you drive in and you add those in. And then what we do then is prioritize those. So what are deal breakers, what are very important, and what are nice, and we categorize those. And hopefully you end up with only 2 or 3 deal breakers, and then it's right, okay, who's in the market, and contact those companies, set up demos, make it very clear to them that we will have all types of people in there as well. So, you'll have execs, but you'll also have techs who will want to talk to techs. You'll want people that talk about the money, So if you can get all of that in one session, it's great. So you need time, and that's what we did. And we went out to market, and we found SolarWinds /Enable as it was at the time, and we for us, so how it was categorized was we can move the PSA and RMM to the same company. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a critical and it wasn't a deal breaker. And we decided, okay, we will leave the PSA what it is with that provider, and we still with that provider. And we came to enable, there were a few things that, were critical to deal breaking for us that enabled me not have live at that point in time, but in fairness, they were willing to give us betas and alphas even of releases to tick those boxes.
Was that one of the main reasons of picking a provider like Enable, that you almost felt like you were part of the development process, right? You had sort of said, these are things that are critical for us.
Yeah, it's relationships, isn't it? You identified earlier that our customers are partners, and they very much are. It's how we operate, and we want that feeling from our suppliers as well. We pay all our suppliers way ahead of their terms to maintain a relationship. So we kind of put the effort into it, and we expect the suppliers to treat us the same. So, if something's not working, don't lie to us, just tell us, and we'll work together to try and fix it. So we had the feeling that we could do that with Enable, and, I'm here today because tomorrow we do the business transformation event, and it'll be the second one that I've attended in person, and the third one with you, and things like that, the value adds are critical to the development of that relationship.
Yeah, that's great. I was just going to follow up on that with the business transformation programs. Obviously, there's a lot of vendors out there trying to do things sort of in addition to the tool or the service that they provide. And one of the things that we do is we run these business transformation programs. You had the pleasure of joining us in Nice, which was a blast earlier in the year. And then you're here in Edinburgh this week on a growth program. Can you talk about obviously you haven't gone through this program this week, but the program earlier in the year, what was the value you got from attending something like that in person?
It was hard, 2 days work, wasn't it? And you had to open up and share, and we had a room full of people that were willing to buy into that as well. And some people, I think there were 2 or 3 members of staff in their organizations, and some were slightly larger than us, and so you had a good cross-section, and it's always surprising, and also geographic spread as well. Whilst we're all in Europe, and I know maybe if you're in the States, Europe is just Europe, but it isn't. It's a lot of different countries with a lot of different legislation, political differences, and it is a complex place, but it's surprising. At the end of the day, we sell the same stuff, and we employ the same type of person to service that selling. So what we do is very similar, and actually it was quite similar when we were looking at percentages with the US as well, weren't we? Looking at the markup from what staff costs to what you sell for. The percentage is about the same worldwide, it would appear. So yeah, stuff like that. It's reassurance, I think, was the big word I took away from it, which, what we're doing seems to be in keeping with other people. And it's a tough time to be an MSP, isn't it? We've gone from a profit margin, a net profit margin, to cloud-based with a very different profit margin. And that's not easy. No. And it's easy to panic, so reassurance is critical. So that was good, definitely, and the willingness to share data and be transparent and open about it. And also to kind of go, okay, well, where should the focus of the business be? Where are we weak compared to others? And are we confident that where we are weak, we need to be stronger? That's the right place to focus. So yeah, it was an opportunity to focus, I'd say.
I thought it was neat. I mean, Europe is obviously a small place in comparison. I mean, I know when we were in London, one of our partners, they could say, well, I could throw a rock and hit a competitor over there and a competitor over there and a competitor over there. But when you came to Nice, I don't think you or anybody looked at the folks in the room as competition, did you? You looked at it as peers, right?
Yeah, exactly. I only knew one company ahead of that. I only knew one company in the room, and I wouldn't say that they were competition. So I think the MSP industry, particularly in this country anyway, we do get on. At the end of the day, we kind of accept there's enough work there. There's enough customers there. And it's much easier, it's the old saying, keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. I wouldn't say, our competitors are enemies, but, it's better to get on with them, innit?
So let's talk about BCC. What's next for BCC? What are you looking to do? What do you see in the future?
I think We're in a transition phase and have been for a few years with everybody going from on-prem to cloud. It's stating the obvious, but what comes next there? We kind of got most of our customers now to embrace / put up with the fact that they have to pay monthly subscriptions, because we still have customers that just want to spend a big chunk of money now and then not look at it for, we'd say 3 years and they say 5 years. That model. So the work of transitioning, I think, is coming to an end, and then it's about the value add that goes with that. And that value add is very much changing, I think. One of the biggest things we've had to do with our customers is get them to accept that not seeing us is a good thing.
That's right.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Yep. We haven't said, why do you want to put the service contract up this year? We haven't seen you.
That's right.
Well, one, it's a good thing you haven't seen us, and two, we don't need to come to the site to fix it anymore. It's very different. So I think it's getting the customers to come with us on the next phase of that journey, to be honest. What that looks like, it's a hell of a tough question. And I haven't heard anyone who I've heard asked it give an answer that has been a click answer. It's been one of those waffle, and I know that mine is exactly the same. There's a waffle there because, we don't really know where the next thing is. But yeah, definitely for us, we've embraced home working. For half the team, the service desk team, that works great. We have office space for those guys that like to be in, and it's good to have them in. And what we're finding is that having the sales team, and I'm not one of those guys that pretends to not have a sales team, but everyone has a sales team, they just say they don't, But anyway, the sales team, the provisioning team, and the admin team, they seem to be more in the office. Your service desk techs and field techs working from home seem to have embraced it. So that works for us. And yeah, our target customer base is shifting a little bit as well. So right back at the start, I was saying, we have a wide spread of customers. We're actively looking for that slightly larger customer base. We feel that our size as a company enables us to look after them properly. And obviously, frankly, it's easier to look after one larger customer than 5 smaller customers.
Sure. That's great. The thing I really respect about you is you've had some success. You call it luck, but I know it's very much you positioned yourself and set yourself up for that. You went through a tumultuous period that could have really ruined a lot of companies, but you didn't let that happen. You continued to fight through that. And even today, you continue to work on your business. You're out here in Edinburgh to be with some of your other peers, to learn about growing your business and what other opportunities there are. And so you're always saying, I can do more, I can look at others. And I really respect that you have that sort of ambition to constantly be improving. So thank you for being here. So here's the last question. I always love to ask this one. This podcast is called the Now That's It podcast, and it's all about, when was that point in time when you realized that this is it, that I had done the right thing, I had made the right choices? When did you realize this was it?
Oof, that's a tough one, isn't it? For me, I think I've always been led by job security, right? If you look at it, I kind of created myself a job in IT initially, and then the buy-in to the business was really to make sure we had a job. Yep. And then the business brain, if you're being crude, you'd say the greed, kicked in a bit later for me. So, and I know this may sound cheesy, and it certainly sounds old-fashioned now with the need to be environmental and people working from home. But genuinely one of the measures of success, if money ever is success, and I really don't think it is, for me was that when you look out in the car park outside the office and there are nice cars parked there, and there's more cars, and so the amount of people we employ and what we pay them and the fact that we can give them a good life, for me, that was very much a driver, and it remains a driver. We had one of the guys that I mentioned earlier, when he joined us, he didn't have a car, he turned up on a bike. Now, You know, in the city, fine, but when you live in the sticks, it doesn't really work like that. So, you know, and he didn't have a home, and he was sharing a flat and what have you. So to be able to do that and create that and go into schools and maybe inspire the next generation to do it. So yeah, that for me, I think is so it's an ongoing thing. My son now works in the business as well. That's a son that I really didn't see when, you know, I was working away from Monday to Friday for years on end. So I see him now nearly every day, and have a great relationship with my daughter, my wife. So yeah, you know, I'm happy, and in an odd way, getting through the tough times makes it worthwhile, you know.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. I love it. One of the best ones I've heard, and I really appreciate you sharing that one.
You won't get a short answer from me, you know that, yeah?
I didn't expect it.
Unless
no
you're
problem.
offering to buy me a beer.
That's right, later. So H, I really thank you so much for being here today, sharing your story. I wish you and the rest of the BCC team the best in the future.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again soon.
Great, thank you, Chris.